It's time for another edition of Saturday with Seniors, brought to you once again by Eisenhower's Tioga County, Harley Davidson. It may be the off season, but you can go down and check out all the bikes and hang out down there. If you need any service work done, get it done now during the off season, and your bike will be ready to ride this spring. Eisenhower, South Mansfield, and Jeanne Sauer joins us from Roseville today. Well, hello, Jeanne.
Hello. How are you?
Well, good. How are you?
Not too bad.
Well, I was at the Tioga County Fair annual banquet, and you were there just having a great old time. You do a lot of stuff with the fair, as KC101 does. And I thought, hey, maybe you want to join us for Saturday with Seniors. You're a little younger than some of our seniors, but you've got some great stories.
I do.
How long, by the way, have you been involved with the Tioga County Fair? I know you with the baked goods auction. You're always working with the baked goods.
Yes, I am. I was in high school when we started with the 4-H shows. We showed sheep. Of course, my mother was involved with it for a long time, and so that's how we kind of got into it. And whatever mother said she wanted you to do, you best be helping out doing something. So one day somebody said they needed assistance with the baked goods department, so that's where I ended up climbing bleachers and placing stuff where it was supposed to go. And
that was more than 10 years ago.
Probably. I graduated from high school in 75, so it was before that.
Before that even. We'll have to talk about the early days of the fair, but let's actually go back even further. Your family, did they grow up in this area?
Yes, they did. My mother grew up in Roseville, and my father grew up in the Mansfield area. And mother became involved with the fair because her father was involved with the Mansfield Fair at the Smythe Park.
The old great Mansfield Fair that went on until the 1960s.
Yes. So she got involved in that, and then just kind of, as it moved to Whitneyville, then she kind of moved with it. So
absolutely. Did you ever go to the Great Mansfield Fair?
I do not ever remember going to the Mansfield Fair. I just remember that there was a building there at one point for the longest time, but I think the flood of 72, if I remember correctly, flood of 72 kind of...
That's when they took over the land, whoever the transfer was basically done for the dike and everything, and that changed everything down there after that. But so tell me about your childhood there. So you grew up, were your parents farmers, or what did they do?
We moved into the home that we live in on 549 just before you drop into Roseville, about 1960, and my siblings were all basically born there, and we raised sheep. They had come over from my grandparents, or my dad's dad, and we raised the sheep for a while, and then eventually mother decided she wanted to do cows. By that time I was kind of on my way out, but we didn't have television, so you did a lot of wandering around, and of course church was the center of your life other than school. Yeah,
in a small town like that, the playground, the church, the school was probably the big things. Did you have chores as a kid?
Yes.
That's something that kids, I don't know what, less than half of kids I think have really any serious chores to do.
I mean, there were 5 kids in our family, and so
you got work done.
Oh yeah, so there was a lot to do. There was always meals to do. Mom drove school bus. Dad worked for Westinghouse in between taking care of the sheep and stuff. So we had time to play, time to wander the hills, and there was always youth group, and that always transpired into ice skating and sledding and square dancing and ball playing Sunday afternoons after church and
all that good stuff. So when you grew up, you said you didn't have TV.
It was the radio and it was the record player. And we listened to, my grandmother was a music major, and she taught piano and she played in church, and so that just music was a core thing. I learned a lot of musicals. Even now, if I can find them on television someplace, I'll be watching them and singing with them, and just because that was it just made you feel good.
You say was your whole family living in the Roseville area? Did you have a lot of family members right there when you were a kid?
Yes, just 2 aunts lived out of the area, and eventually, as we grew up, my brothers all moved out of the area. I have one brother that lives in Marquette, Michigan, one brother that lives in Alaska, and the other one lives in England, and it was because they were in the military, and that's how they ended up out of the way.
What was Roseville like when you were a kid? What were your memories of town like?
Everybody was close. Everybody knew everybody. Everybody helped each other when there was, somebody was down and out. The main thing was the store. You would walk from our house down to Roseville, which was a quarter of a mile, and you'd pick up the pop bottles when you were a kid, and you'd take them down and change them in for a nickel or whatever, 2 cents or whatever they were worth.
Yeah, well, when 2 cents was worth more than $2 now.
That's right. Exactly. If you needed a newspaper.
This is the Roseville Market, as we call it now, and was it still the Roseville Market?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? Didn't know what the name was then?
Yoder's owned it. Arnie Yoder owned it, and they had everything in there, from groceries to penny washers to he would cut meat for you. You could buy your newspaper there. Isabel Oldroyd, she would line the newspapers up if you had a subscription, and she would write your name on each of the news. Yes, reserve you a paper, and then you'd take your dime in and get Graham would say, "Here, go get my paper," and we'd go over and get the. Oh, and here's a penny for some candy if you. Yeah. So yeah.
Wow, that's neat. The store was closed for many years. The new owners have done a wonderful job of bringing back some of that nostalgia, and the subs are great there too. Give them a little plug because when you're in a store like that, in a little town like Roseville, you financially need all the help you can. So please support them. I had a sub the other day; it was great. But we'll get back to the old days here.
Yeah.
So what else did you do? So no TV. You're outside doing things. You
read. I mean, everybody, just any book we could possibly get, and not necessarily. You went to the library because.
Where was the library in Roseville?
Well, there wasn't a library in Roseville. I mean, they did have a thing for a while where they did bring a bunch of books and you could come in and take them out. But you'd go to Grammy's house. You'd go to Aunt Eileen's house. You'd go to hey, you got a book I can read?
Yeah. So did a lot of reading and sports and stuff outside. Did you play school sports or just get the friends together for sports? Or
not really. Once the brothers got into high school and they went to Mansfield and they wrestled and that kind of stuff. My sister and I, she did some track. I was the oldest, so I had more responsibilities. And
you're the babysitter.
Well, yes and no, but it was just one of those things where we were 10 miles from town, and if you didn't have a ride, and we had one car, and that was for Dad to drive.
That was common then to have one car.
Yep, one car, and Dad had to have it because he had to go to work.
You had how many kids in your family?
5.
So 7 people total in the family and one car. Mm-hmm. Did you all pile in the car?
Oh, yes.
Was this the station wagon?
Yes, the station wagon. Everybody climbed in.
Some in the back, seeing the trip backwards. Yeah, okay.
Yes, and the pickup trucks. Of course, you rode around in the back of the pickup truck. If we're just running down the ball game.
I'm sure it's dangerous, but boy, wasn't that fun in those days? It just was simple.
Telling us just a little bit. Dad would go to work, and we would want to go swimming. And so we had a John Deere 620. Mom would hook up the manure spreader, which was a sheep manure spreader, and it was dry. And it was clean. So she'd haul of us kids in the manure spreader up around the corner and take us swimming in the manure. And of course, we got laughed at all the time. But it was like, hey, we got to go someplace you didn't get to go, and there was no traffic, so you didn't have to worry about somebody coming up behind you and honking at you and having a fit because you're going too slow.
That's really neat. And when you were a kid, how often did you go into Mansfield? Did your family, was that more of just a once a week kind of trip thing, if that?
Not until we started high school and whatnot, but even then we didn't go in very often, unless there was groceries to get or something like that.
So going out to eat as a family was not something that happened probably too often either.
No.
I know money was tighter then, and I imagine with the big family, that would make it even more of a challenge to...
definitely.
I think we forget. It used to be a luxury going out to eat. Now it's just normal going to fast food or wherever, grab a sub.
But there wasn't fast food. There wasn't McDonald's. There was a few restaurants here and there, but unless you lived in town, what was the purpose of... I mean, I remember as a kid, and I know that, this is 60 years ago, I'm thinking of this, and anyone that talks with you about Levon's subs and hoagies there in town, they were fantastic. I can still smell it. I can still taste them. Mom would buy a 12-incher, and she would divide it up amongst us kids. I mean, it was basically taste, and if you were hungry, go get a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, because that was the luxury of the day,
As far as it stretched.
That's as far as it went.
But you probably learned some responsibility, too, from that. You understand the value of $1. I think parents today are very quick to forget that if you don't earn it, if you just keep handing to a kid, they never really
they don't learn it.
Equate that with the work it takes.
Right, exactly.
So tell me about church. That's something that you attended to when you were very young?
Oh, yes. In fact, we attended the Methodist church at 9 o'clock.
In Roseville.
In Roseville.
Church,
Okay. And then the Baptist church had the Sunday school rooms, and the Sunday school was at 10. So we would go to Sunday school at the Baptist church, and then at 11, we would go to the Baptist church service there. And the reason was because my grandmother played piano for both services. So believe me, you got your
Nobody
church.
Saw Grandma in concert more than you.
No, did not. And she tried to, make sure that each of us kids had some piano, learn how to read music. She insisted that if a child came and got lessons from her, that she would make them perform. She would have them play something in church so that people knew, that kid can play.
So the Roseville Rinky Dinks, there's a couple things Roseville's famous for, and that is one of them. What do you know about them? Were you ever involved with them?
Oh, yes. My grandmother decided that when the Mansfield High School decided they no longer were going to come to Roseville Old Home Day, which was the first Saturday of every August, they weren't going to come over and march in the parade anymore. And my grandmother said, well, there's enough people in the town of Roseville that play instruments. We should be able to pull something
Probably
together.
because of your grandmother that there was enough people, because the population's, I think, 200 of Roseville.
Yeah, just about. And so she called everybody together that she knew played an instrument, and they got together and practiced. We only know about 4 songs, but they have been in existence well over 50 years. And we have fun. The uniforms are bib overalls and a red shirt and whatever hat you want. And some of us cannot play an instrument, and I'm one of them. I can sing you whatever you want to sing, but I cannot play an instrument. So I play the lawn chair.
You're not the only one who plays the lawn chair, which is what makes this. Who came up with the lawn chair concept, the whole design? Do you know?
I'm not exactly sure how that.
It's great.
I really don't know. Somebody just came up with a simple routine, said, hey, let's do something with.
We need uniforms, but we need to keep them cheap.
Yeah, keep them cheap and make sure that lawn chair is not something you're ever going to use again. Because by the time you bang it on the ground enough times, they come apart. But they got to make noise, so.
Yeah.
You have to be able to make noise
so you
with
test them, find the best.
Oh, yes.
The one that's right in key.
Yes. Yeah, right in key. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, we did a little history piece on Roseville Rinky Dinks.
Sure.
And I tried to get whatever information I could. It's just fascinating. The
it's
Mansfield
fun.
Parade every year, seeing them then at the end of the parade is.
And it's harder now because some of the originals are getting to the point where they can't march anymore. And like my dad, he'll still play the baritone as long as you stick him in a gaiter, you know. And of course, Mom can't play anymore at all. So she still pushes it, but she just can't do it anymore. But my grandkids came along, and when they were newborns, I marched and I had them in a front pack carrier. And then the next year they went on the backpack. And then the next one came and front pack and backpack. and then once they got out of that backpack, then you threw them in the wagon. And, you know, they got to throw candy and ride until they were old enough to march. And
they still involved?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
they're still involved. I still have to jerk their chain a little bit.
Yeah, well, that's your job.
That's my job. That's right.
Always has been.
But they always have fun when they do it, so might just as well join in.
Yeah. So growing up, did you go to the movies ever or any of those type of things much?
I don't ever
Again, that
much.
10 miles to Mansfield was longer than it is now.
Yes, exactly. If we went to the movies, it wasn't until we got to high school, and either you were dating or once in a while the high school would have sponsor a movie up at the theater, and you know, a bunch of us would go up and you know, pay 50 cents to go up and see a movie during the day or whatever.
There.
At the Twain, yes. At the Twain.
Roller skating? Do you ever go do that?
Oh, yes. Yeah, okay. Once in a great while I did, and I always enjoyed it. You know, we really had a good time when, you know, doing it.
That seemed to be a popular pastime when I talked to people from before the
Gave
days
you something to do.
Yeah. And now, unfortunately, the default is just going to your phone or to your, you know, whatever, going online and stuff. But I don't know. The younger generation doesn't realize that there's a lot of fun things out there.
Oh, there is. And I mean, even the bowling alley, I'm so sorry that it's gone because my granddaughter was bowling through the school, you know, on one of the junior leagues. And of course, then all of a sudden it's gone.
Yeah.
And she's just like, really? I love to bowl. So it's like once in a while, we pack it up to Elmira or Williamsport or
go over to Troy still.
Go over to Troy or something and just bowl for a while just because the kids like it. It's something to do.
Yeah. You drive around now and you used to see kids outside. You don't really see them outside as much either. So do you remember the first time you ever had McDonald's? Or didn't put that much of an impression on you?
I do remember, and it was here in Wellsboro because Wellsboro came before Mansfield.
That's right. I think that,
We made a special trip over and had McDonald's.
Gene Walsh, owned both, I think, right from the start.
Did.
He was a wonderful guy. I mean, think about how many people learned their first job and learned skills there. And talking with him one time when I interviewed him, I really learned a lot about how many thousands of people had their first job at one of the McDonald's in Tioga County.
Oh, yeah.
Where was your first job?
My first job was the milk jug place. Yep, Farmer in the Dell. Which is now where Sheetz is.
Yes.
And my first job was in there. Yep,
there's a restaurant that had cows in it.
Yes.
Like literally you walk in, you could hear the cows mooing while you were eating.
you could look out
you're
the
eating a hamburger and you're hearing cows mooing. You're like, I don't know.
But the milkshakes and the jug milk and that was
the last of the jug milk places.
Yes. And then let's see, where did I go? Oh, I went to nursing school after that and then got pregnant in the middle of all of that. So
that goes that way.
That went on by the wayside. So, and I had 2 children, and then I worked for UPS after that. So,
and when did TV come to your house?
TV did not come to my house until after I left. After I graduated from high school, which was in '75. It was sometime after that.
Was that cable TV that you needed? Was that kind of the holdout?
I
You just didn't.
don't think that it was cable. I think it was still rabbit ear stuff. I remember going to my grandmother's house because she was one of the first ones in Roseville to have it, and going down and watching, Saturday morning cartoons.
You had one shot to watch things back there.
That's right.
Till the VHS came out in the 80s. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Christmas specials. If you didn't catch it when it was on,
you weren't going to get it.
You remember everybody? Well, maybe you didn't have to, but when I was in school with TV, we'd all talk about the next day. Oh my God, you see, Rudolph last night, or Frosty was on last night. And every kid in 4th grade watched it that night before and talked about it.
Yeah, well, I remember my classmates talking about it, but we just didn't have it. So.
Kind of left out with that.
Yeah, but when you read books, you knew the story already.
Yeah, you'd already seen it in your head more than you could see it
exactly.
on TV.
You'd already seen it in your head.
Yep. So you were mentioning how was it your grandmother was involved with the Great Mansfield Fair?
My grandfather was.
Grandfather, okay.
Yeah.
And your family, and you got involved at a young age with the Tioga County Fair, and you're still involved with it. Tell me what you love about the fair, and I think hopefully it's values that your family instilled in you, which is parents, you got to teach your kids these things.
Yes, it is. It's all of that. It's helping each other. It's learning new things. It's making friends that you otherwise would not have met. Some of my best friends are from over in the valley, and we met them through the 4-H club because we had sheep, and then our sheep leader passed away, and so we needed to hook up with something else, and so we had the Tioga County Livestock Club, and that was beef and pigs from over Westfield area, Farmington Hill area, and that we always used to go over there and just have a blast, just meeting new people.
20,000 people, give or take, attend the fair every year, and to me it brings back the nostalgia of what life was probably like when you're growing up, more than anything else does, because you go there and there's not computer screens, it's not a digital thing, it's back to the simple
the simple stuff.
Yeah.
As I look at the Grange was the big entertainment back in that day, although we weren't necessarily involved in the Grange because we didn't have a Grange in Roseville, but still that was your entertainment. That's where you went to see people. You learned new things. You learned market prices. You learned so many things there.
Yeah.
And it's still part of the fair. It's still there. You have to look a little closer, but it's still there.
Yeah. The fair can be whatever you want it to be. I love the antique museum there too, going through, and I think a lot of people miss some of the things like that, or going into some of the other, the horses are competing over there. Sometimes that gets overlooked, but there's so much there, and it really does represent so many different things in the county. And I love when there's like kids that spend the whole week down there with their animals.
Oh yeah, it's so much fun to watch them, taking care of the animals, and then to watch it grow again, because it had gone down a little bit, and now it's coming back, and you're having to build new buildings to fit everything in, and and that's the fun part.
Yeah, there's still new people getting involved, which is great. When I first started, Granny Annie Clark was there, and every time I saw her since, she loved reminding me, because that first meeting we had just been on the air like a week, and I brought a radio with me, a battery-powered transistor radio, so I could make sure KC 101 stayed on the air. Because we were still running a tube transmitter that I hadn't tested yet, and I was all nervous.
Yeah.
And she was laughing at me because I just kept putting it up to my ear to make sure we were still there during the meeting. But they were so welcoming right from the start. I was new here in 1995.
Sure.
I've always said to people that are new when they move here, if you want to meet people, get involved with something like the Tioga County Fair, or any nonprofit organization, or church, or Red Cross, or sports team, or
Oh yeah. And with the fair, it's like, even now I've been involved with the baked goods department, which is, to me, it's so much fun. It's so fun to watch, see what new people bring in, what they're trying out, and all of that kind of stuff. And then this year, for whatever reason, things just changed, and I kind of reached out and started doing a couple other things because I had the time, to do something else. It wasn't that I had to rush right home, and I didn't have cows to milk or whatever it was that I was doing at the moment. And I met some more new people, just had a blast, really did, so it's like, okay, next year we'll pull my big girl panties on and do something else.
Is there anybody who's entered that competition like every year since you first joined, or off the top of your head, has been doing this 30 plus 40 years, whatever?
Probably. We have some consistent people, and of course you had to ask me names.
Okay, that's okay.
But there are a few people that do. You always look forward to them entering things, And of course, always trying to push the kids into it.
It's always neat. Like I think with Matt Biscardi, I know it was Matt, but I asked him, I said, how many years have you been doing the Demolition Derby? And I think it was 40 or 41 years that he's been, and there's those people that I think we need like the Hall of Fame. Anybody who's entered something for more than 25 years.
Yes. Oh, yes. They should be.
Legendary.
Yep. And Matt Biscardi is one. He's one.
Yeah. Doc's been down there for a long time. Ask Doc about the old stories there, the porta potty story.
Oh my gosh.
I did tell that on the air after I asked him. But well, anything else you want to share? We're coming up on the end of our 20 minutes or so here. Any memories or anything you want to share or thoughts? Or
it was great to live back then. I try on occasions to bring it with me, show people, this is what it was like. Try it. I still can up a storm. I still bake up a storm because my mother taught me that kind of stuff. And I still remember, the kitchen being a mess with deer meat or whatever it was that we were canning up. Yep. And
a steam bath in there.
Yes, steam bath and the pressure canners and, but you got to teach these kids how to do it because they're going to need it.
Yep. And they're going to enjoy it too.
Oh, they will.
Oddly enough, we assume kids don't want to do things with this, but they actually have some fun with those types of things.
Oh, yes, they do. And I said, and then they can take it and pass it on to their own,
Absolutely. There's a good feeling and pride in growing something, canning it, and, making it yourself.
Yeah, and then eating it.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And of course, if you make any baked goods, enter them at the Tioga County Fair,
you better
competition,
believe it.
because I bid on that stuff, and I'm looking for the good stuff.
Yes, that's right. And when we send them to the baked goods auction, all the proceeds, go back into the fair, to help. And we, again, this year, we hit another milestone. We were over $2,000 for the baked goods.
Quite possibly the most successful baked good auction of any fair in the state. There may be something bringing more, but for the number of people that we have, and you've talked with some of the other fairs, they look to us to figure out how to do it.
Yes. Right after our fair, we made a trip to Sullivan County Fair, and we talked with them and went in the office and said, hey, this is who we are, and this is what we do, and how come you got that much stuff out there and you haven't sold it yet?
Yeah.
And they're like, what? I said, yeah, you need to do this. This will help your fair. This will help your fair.
Yeah, it's always a lot of fun. And there's some of these little secret things about the fair that it's impossible to list all the 200 things that go on. But every year, try to find a few new ones and you'll love them.
Oh, yeah. Like as in when we were showing sheep and we were climbing in the beams of the sheep barn, and you weren't supposed to be.
There's a lot of things like that there. Yes. All right. Well, Jeanne Sauer from Roseville, thank you for joining us on Saturday with Seniors. Wasn't that bad, was it?
No, it was not. This is very nice. Thank you.
We're always looking for guests, and I have to ask about 5 people before I find one. For some reason, everyone thinks this is going to be all scary. We do record this ahead, so you're not nervous. We edit and all that stuff. So that way you don't hear any of the swear words that Jeanne accidentally said. There was like 100 of them there.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Kevin.
No, I'm just kidding. Never had to beep anybody on Saturday with Seniors. All right. Thank you for joining us. All brought to you by